right. This is a good example of a two-point perspective. One of your vanishing points, of course, being right here, and the other being right here. And this is our center line. This is something that my Art 2 and 3 students have been working on diligently over the past week. Now, this is a great example because it already shows you where your doors are, shows you where your horizon line is. It shows you where your windows are, and you can see how she's slowly going through and creating windows and kind of marking off where her advertisements are going to be versus where our windows are going to be. So today we are going to actually start manipulating our buildings to be a surrealist type of atmosphere. We want to make sure that our city's a little bit different. Not all of our buildings are like this, and it gives an opportunity to have a surrealist aspect. So we're going to take a couple of buildings. I'm going to focus on this one right here. And we are going to come up with a theme that we like to create a type of style. Now I'm going to do something very, very simplistic. I'm going to do a movie theater. And the idea is to take the movie theater and to create almost a unique and different point of view per your object. Now, I always like to start off by making a list of 20 different things that kind of reminds me of items that I like versus items that I don't like. And then I kind of go from there. So we all know that we all enjoy movie theaters. So that's one of the safest things that we can pick. And one of the easiest examples that I can show you how to turn an object into, especially with a two-point perspective and the buildings being as large and wide as possible. So when I think of movie theaters, I think of different items. I think of movies. I think of film. I think of sodas. I think of popcorn. So there's lots of different items that I can pick. So I'm going to pick, just kind of based off of the size of my box that I'm working with here, I'm going to pick a popcorn machine or a box of popcorn. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to kind of clean up a little bit. I'm going to keep that horizon line just until I know exactly where everything's going to fall. All right, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, see if I can't. There we go. And I'm going to work just off of this item. Now I'm going to create a popcorn box. First thing I want to do is I want to play around with, I kind of want like a popcorn bucket with popcorn spewing out of it. And the idea is whatever you do, even if it's a basketball, if it's a baseball, whatever, you want to work inside the box that you're given. All right, but the idea is you kind of have to play around with the fact being that this is, in fact, a three-dimensional box. All right? You guys can kind of see, it's a little off, but you guys can kind of see 3D box. All right? So you're just going to have to think about it along those lines and build your three-dimensional object off of that. And that's why I always like to keep it super simple to start with. I'm going to readjust the height of my building. Of course, the front of my building, despite everything, I'm always going to go to this vanishing point. And the side of my building, I'm going to go to the opposite vanishing point. So I've got here a new height to my building. I'm going to leave this up here just for reference. So you can always see what the height of your building originally was. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of, a lot of this is free drawing more than anything. I know that a fun little popcorn box, I'm going to scoop in the sides just a little bit. And I'm going to play around with stripes because I kind of want that traditional red and white popcorn box. Just kind of keep it simple. I'm going to do a very light hatching for now, just so I don't get confused on my stripes. This being, of course, the corner of my building. This being a corner. This being my base. Now notice, I want you guys to realize the first thing is that I didn't move my building back any. It's still on that exact same line that my sidewalk was originally on. And it's pretty safe to say I should have used a ruler there, as usual. Alright, I'm going to kind of create a little zigzag shape. Now, I'm going to play around with creating popcorn. Just kind of go in here. Create some popcorn kernels. And I'll create these kernels inside the top part of my box. And I'm going to think three-dimensional, so I'm going to use one of our vocabulary words and do overlapping. Now the fun part of this is you can get extremely detailed, and these can be lights. And you can even have them out on the sidewalk as little barriers or something along those lines. Have them kind of go off into the distance. Here's the side of this building. One of the reasons why we make this successful is we don't overcompensate things. That is a terrible eraser. Erase the box we had going on here. A little helpful tool. Sometimes if you have a huge eraser like this, it's nice to kind of go in and just kind of cut a little piece off of it. So you can clean up those edges. Clean up where the squiggly marks were without erasing more than you intended. I'll zoom out a little bit so you can see what we got going on here. Alright, so now we got this popcorn box, and what I like to do, again using hatching, is to go ahead and create, we already have an alleyway back here. You guys can see the little alley right here. Darken up some of these lines. What I love about this paper is all my lines are super light until we know exactly what we want. And then you start darkening it up. So you got an alleyway there. Have the side of a building here, not necessarily an alleyway, but using hatching, you can kind of define that a little bit more. Another thing you absolutely want to do beyond a shadow of a doubt, let me sharpen my pencil, is you still need a sign. So go in at the top of my sign, bottom of my sign. Now the beauty of it is because this is now a curved building, the lines are curved, which makes things just a tad bit different. You know, you can make them straight and make your sign kind of pop out a little bit more, which might actually be nice. So when you're creating a sign, as opposed to a window, you will see a depth underneath. And on the side, furthest away from the vanishing point. All right, so you got that nice little depth there. Just to kind of, again, make it a little bit more noticeable. I'm just gonna throw in some hatching. Hatching and cross hatching really allows you to have depth. All right, so I'm gonna do something simple. Now, when I'm going in here and doing this, definitely gonna have to almost bubble letter everything. Should have. Another thing is a door, and again, we're going off the height. There's our horizon line. You can probably see it just a little bit right there. Everything's kind of curved a little bit. Still kind of want to create a nice curved shape. Because it's curved, it's really difficult to use your ruler. You can always compensate it. You can always straighten out the building. It's just the option I had. And I went with that. Gonna erase the color hatching there. One thing I am gonna do is I'm gonna go from this corner to this vanishing point way over here. Inside the glass doors, so I can create almost like a side wall there. All right, so now I've got a floor. Got my double width. All right. So now I've kind of created a surrealist style of movie theater. Just a little fun, different ways to do it. And I've seen dozens of ways to do it. Some people use movie reels, some people use movie posters, some people use actors, some people even mimic the some of the famous theaters across the whole world. There's just, the key is to get in there, play around with your design, and figure out exactly what you want to create. And then the key to making it all look very realistic and very surrealist is to create your value. Your value is what's going to change everything that you do. You can just kind of see me going in here and shading some of this stuff to make it look a little bit more three-dimensional. And again, you have tons of options. We could have did candy boxes or, you know, like I said, a movie reel or anything along those lines. But it just gives you a few options to kind of play around with it. You need to change 7 of them. Altogether, when you're dealing with 2-point perspective, they can be the ones, you know, over here in the background. They can be the ones up front. The ones up front look a little bit more detailed, of course. The ones in the background, you would have to play around with it. One of my favorite ones that I always see everybody do is they do a bakery, and they usually do like a cupcake or an ice cream. So just kind of play around with it. The other fun thing is look at this building right here. We have windows all here. We have windows all here. Now we can play around with the idea that you could see, we would assume that this would be, if we got windows on 2 sides, it would be on all 4 sides. So you can kind of play around with the idea that you would still see the popcorn even a little bit more inside the buildings, just a little bit. So, all right. Well, that is your surrealist 2-point perspective. That's what I expect you to finish up with. We need to go in, and the last step that you do, as you can see that I've started kind of darkening up everything. I do kind of recommend using a Sharpie, but it's not required. Just to kind of come in and to create your value, to allow your city to become more realistic. Bring the lines forward that you know are correct, and erase kind of the lines that you know aren't correct. All right?